Hello and welcome once again to the Aakash BYJU'S JEE channel. My name is Atiullah and we are live with the Rankers Batch 2023. So if you want to be a ranker in JEE Main and Advanced 2023, then this is the place to be. Alright, so what's on agenda today? We are going to look at projectile motion in a lot of detail, but the idea is to get comfortable with motion in 2D. Okay, motion in 1D we have already handled. Now it's time to get into 2D and see how we can do there. Okay, so the concepts of motion in 2D, the basic concepts of motion in 2D are going to be helpful everywhere. Okay, they're going to help you with projectile motion. Projectile motion is just a special case of motion in 2D. Okay, then we are going to look at relative motion. That is just a special case of motion in 2D. We are going to look at circular motion, which is also a special case of motion in 2D. And we are going to look also at the projectile on an inclined plane, and all of that is just going to be an extension of the basic concepts of motion in 2D. Okay, so they can come in various forms, various sizes, various situations, but the concepts of handling in motion in 2D is going to remain the same. All right, so many people have already joined. So Manab, hello, how are you? Swastika, good afternoon. Vikas, hello. Surya, hello. Bani, hello. Sapna, good afternoon. All right, so a lot of people have joined in already. So Arif is also here. A very good afternoon to everyone. And without wasting any time, we should get started with projectile motion. Okay. Before that, just a few announcements. You would have heard about Anthe. If you have anyone who is between class 7th and 12th, do tell them about Anthe. There are a lot of rewards that can be won. Okay. Next, BYJU'S scholarship test. You would have heard about that as well. Classes 4 to 10. So if they do very well in this test, they can win a chance to go to Australia and watch ICC World Cup T20, and also they can get up to 100% scholarship. Okay, क्या बोल रहा है? So Swastika is saying इस बार एडवांस में आया था बढ़िया क्वेश्चन प्रोजेक्टाइल से. Yes, Swastika, प्रोजेक्टाइल से बढ़िया क्वेश्चन आ सकता है. Okay, projectile is a very important topic, and not just that, the projectile motion concept can be used anywhere. It can be used in electrostatics, it can be used in magnetism, it can be used in modern physics. Everywhere it can be used, so इसको पढ़ना important है. Bani is saying पानी नहीं सर बानी. अरे बानी बोला मैंने. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Bani, yes, Bani Israel. All right, guys. चलो फिर let's get started with what we have to do. So we have two things on agenda today. Understand how to handle motion in 2D, and then look at ground to ground projectile motion. We are only concerned with ground to ground projectile motion. Projectile on an inclined plane, we are going to look at it in the next session. So we are going to limit our discussion over here. Swastika is saying बीच रास्ते में acceleration बदल दिया था उन्होंने question में. Yes, that can be done, Swastika. Yes, absolutely, that can be done. And we are going to handle questions like that. Chalo, let's get started. So what is the basic funda of motion in 2D? Okay, so I'm going to say that if motion is resolved in two mutually perpendicular directions, say along x and y axis, then the x part of the motion occurs exactly at what would have if the y part did not occur, and vice versa. ठीक है? In other words, the x and y motions are independent of each other. Okay? ये इतनी बड़ी लाइन बोल बोल के मैं थक गया, but simple सी बात क्या है कि all you have to do is if you have to handle motion in 2D, then all you have to do is you have to break the motion into two components. Let's say x and y components. Now the x component does not care about the y component. The y component does not care about the x component. They happen independently of each other. Okay? X को y से कोई मतलब नहीं है, y को x से कोई मतलब नहीं है. So whenever we have a question on motion in 2D, our policy is going to be divide and conquer. So we are going to divide the motion in x and y. We'll say कि y axis, चलो इधर आओ. Y motion, you come here. I'm going to solve you separately. X motion, you come here. I'm going to solve you separately. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. And there is an adhesive between these two. So we have broken these two motions, but there is an adhesive between these two motions. There is something which is connecting these two. Okay, what is that? What is that which is connecting these two motions? The time is going to connect those two motions. Exactly, Swastika. Okay. So because the motion is taking place in the same time, we are just dealing it in the x direction and y direction separately. So time is going to be the adhesive between these two motions. Sapna is saying divide and conquer like Britishers, right? So they did it for bad reasons. They did it to exploit us, but we are going to do it for the right reasons. We are going to do it to solve questions better. All right, so that's the difference. Chalo. So क्या है कि अगर मेरे पास I have a particle whose position vector is given by xi plus yj, because now we are in two dimensions, so obviously we need the I and j vectors to describe the position. Is that correct? We are no longer in motion in 1D, so we will need x and y coordinates. Okay, so OP is going to be xi plus yj. Now I don't need to explain this slide to you. If the position vector is xi plus yj, then all we have to do is do things separately. Vx will be equal to dx by dt. Similarly, Vy will be equal to dy by dt. Acceleration in the x direction is going to be dvx by dt, which is also going to be equal to d square x by dt square, and ay is going to be dvy upon dt, and this is going to be equal to d square y upon dt square. So all we have to do is we have to solve them separately. Okay, now in case the acceleration becomes constant, then we can use the equations of motion which we learnt in one dimension separately for the x-axis motion and separately for the y-axis motion. That's all we have to look at. Is that correct? Okay, so chalo, let's solve a concept check post question. Let's see if you can apply this concept correctly or not. Chalo, let's look at the question. What is the question? So the figure is given. Particle A moves along the line y is equal to 30 meter. This is particle A. It is moving along the line y is equal to 30 meter with constant velocity of magnitude 3 meter per second and parallel to the x-axis. Can you see that? At the instant particle A passes the y-axis, okay, at the instant particle A passes the y-axis at this particular position, particle B leaves the origin with zero initial speed and a constant acceleration a of magnitude 0.4 meter per second square. What angle theta between A and the positive direction of the y-axis, which means this angle we are talking about, what should be this angle so that a collision occurs between this ball and the particle? Alright, that's the question, guys. Now you guys help me how to solve it. Is the question clear? Is the question absolutely clear? Okay. This particle A is going along the x-axis at y is equal to 30 meter with a constant velocity, and this is projected at some angle. Okay, it is all happening in the xy plane. Correct? There is no role of gravity over here. It is happening on a horizontal xy plane. Alright. So I need to find out at what angle should this ball be projected so that there is a collision. Now I want ideas from you guys. How do we solve this question? How do we solve this question? Chalo, tell me. Okay. The idea is very simple. Divide and conquer. So we need to divide everything in the x direction and in the y direction. Okay. So I'm going to break all the parameters along the x-axis and y-axis. Now this is the x-axis. This is the y-axis. Okay. Chalo, let's start. What is the motion of this particle? This particle is only moving along the x-axis. Is that correct? So what can we write about the motion of this particle? Let's say it has covered a distance x. Okay, along the x-axis, this particle has covered a distance x. And its velocity is also given to us. Its velocity is 3 meter per second. Is that right? The velocity is 3 meter per second. Okay, and it is constant velocity. So can we say that x will be equal to 3 multiplied by t? Can we say that? So this is x-axis motion for what? For this particle A. Alright. Now I'm talking about the x-axis and y-axis motion for this ball. Okay. Now it does not have any initial velocity, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay. What is the displacement of the ball? The displacement of the ball is this. The ball has gone from here to here. Okay. So what is the x displacement? Let's drop a perpendicular over here. So this is going to be its x displacement and this is going to be its y displacement. Is that correct? Okay. So we can see that if the two particles are colliding, then the x displacement of the ball and x displacement of the particle are going to be the same. Is that correct? है कि नहीं? ठीक है. So we now know the x displacement and y displacement. What else do we need to take care of? Okay, the acceleration is along this direction. So we'll have to break acceleration in the x and y component. Is that correct? So acceleration in this component is going to be a sine theta and acceleration in this direction is going to be a cos theta. Is that correct? Now what we can do is we can solve this question very easily. Swastika is given an answer, is theta is equal to tan inverse of 1 by 10. I think Swastika, that's not the right answer, but we'll check. Okay? Let's see how to solve this question. Chalo. So now what have we figured out? Okay, we have figured out the x displacement and the y displacement and the x acceleration and the y acceleration. The initial velocity is 0. Okay. So what I can do is, for the x motion of the ball, can I write x is equal to uxt plus half axt square? This I am writing for the ball. Okay, can I write x is equal to uxt plus half axt square? Of course I can do that. But what is the initial velocity? The initial velocity is 0. So what does this become? This becomes x is equal to half into what is ax? Ax is a sine theta. The value of acceleration given is 0.4. So this becomes 0.4 sine theta multiplied by t square. Is that correct? So we have got one equation from here. We have got the second equation from here. And from where are we going to get the third equation? From the y motion of the ball. Okay. So let's talk about the y motion of the ball. What is the y displacement? The y displacement given to us is 30. Is that correct? Can you see that? The y displacement is going to be 30. So can I say y is going to be equal to uyt plus half ayt square? Can I say that? Of course I can say that. What is the initial velocity along y direction? It is 0. So simply y becomes equal to half ayt square. What is y? What is this vertical displacement? What is this? I'm sorry, it's not vertical displacement, but what is the displacement along the y-axis? It is 30. Is that correct? Okay. So 30 is going to be equal to half. And what is ay? Ay is a sine theta. So this is going to be, sorry, a cos theta. So this is going to be 0.4 cos theta multiplied by t square. And this is our equation number 3. Is that correct? So how many variables do we have? We have x as a variable, we have y as a variable, and we have, sorry, we don't have y as a variable. We have x as a variable, we have t as a variable, and what do we have? We have theta as a variable. Okay, is that correct? So there are 3 variables and we have already found 3 equations. So let's try to solve them. ठीक है? चलो पहले क्या करते हैं? Let's eliminate x. So we can use equation 1 and 2 to eliminate x. So we can equate x. So that is going to become 3t is equal to 0.2 into sine theta into t square. Okay. From here, what do we get? Okay. Now from here, t is going to be equal to 0. That is going to be the first root. Okay. I'm not cancelling t and t like this. I'm taking t common and that will be equal to 0. Otherwise, your math teachers are going to come after my life. Okay. So the one solution is going to be t is equal to 0. The other solution is going to be how much? The other solution is going to be 3 divided by 0.2 sine theta. Correct? ठीक है, तो ये कितना हो जाएगा? This is going to become 30. So this is going to become 15 divided by sine theta. Correct? Alright, Ravi is here. Good afternoon, Ravi. Swastika is saying these were my equations. So Swastika, just check if this is what you have done. Just check, maybe कोई calculation mistake हो गया होगा. You should not worry about that if there's a calculation mistake here, but in the exam, yes, no calculation mistakes allowed. Chalo, t is equal to 15 upon sine theta. This we have got. Now what do we have? We have this equation. So now what we can do is, we can take the value of t and we can substitute it into the third equation. Can we do that? Of course we can do that. So what do we have? The second equation is 30 is equal to half into 0.4 what? 0.4 what was this? Cos theta into t square. And we got t as 15 upon sine theta. Correct? So all we have to do is, we have to substitute this t over here. So this is going to become 30 is equal to half into 0.4 into cos theta multiplied by 15 square, matlab 15 into 15 divided by sine square theta. Now some things are going to get cancelled. This 15 is going to give us 2. This 2 and 2 is going to become 4. This 0.4 is going to make it 10. Okay. And this 5 3 times, 5 2 times. So this becomes 2 sine square theta is equal to 3 cos theta. Now any ideas how do we solve this? Very simple. We're going to make sine square theta as 1 minus cos square theta. So this becomes 2 into 1 minus cos square theta is equal to 3 cos theta. So from here we are going to get 2 minus 2 cos square theta is equal to 3 cos theta. Okay, I'm doing this very quickly because we need to solve this. This is nothing but quadratic equation in terms of cos theta. So 2 cos square theta, and then we have plus 3 cos theta minus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so if you solve this, how are you going to break this? You're going to break this as 4 cos theta minus theta. So cos theta आपका आ जाना चाहिए half. Is that correct? Check and tell me. Just check and tell me if you're getting cos theta is equal to half. Solve this quadratic equation quickly. 3 cos theta can be broken as 4 cos theta minus cos theta. Okay? So the answer should come out to be cos theta is equal to half. Yani ki theta should be equal to 60 degree. According to me, that's the answer. Check the answer and tell me if that is the right answer. Chalo guys, quickly tell me if this is the right answer. Shiva Chauhan has joined. Hello sir, I am a new student. Alright Shiva, a very warm welcome to Aakash BYJU'S, and this is the Rankers batch. So we are dealing with students and we are dealing with content which is going to make you a ranker in JEE Main and Advanced. Okay? So this is thoda sa high level stuff we are doing, but obviously we start from the basic and we cover everything from JEE Main to JEE Advanced. So if you keep watching these sessions, keep practicing with us, then I hope you are going to do very well in your exam. Okay, Samarth has also joined. Hello Samarth, how is it going? Chalo Baba, answer batao yaar. Are you getting theta is equal to 60 degree? Quickly guys. Did you solve this question? Did you solve this quadratic equation? अब इतनी मेहनत करा ली यार. इतनी मेहनत आपने मुझसे करा ली. अब तो quadratic equation तो solve कर दो यार please. What is the answer to the quadratic equation? Cos theta half आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है? Shiva is saying, sir, ये क्लास फिजिक्स का है क्या? शिवा कैसा क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हो यार? What do you feel like? What do you think this class is about? Just look at what is written. What are we talking about? What do you think this class is? चलो, obviously it is physics. चलो, half आ रहा है सर. मिस्टर हैक ने बोल दिया half आ रहा है सर. चलो, मैं नीट यूजी स्टूडेंट हूं. Okay, Shiva, even if you are NEET UG student, if you want to go a level up in physics, then you can attend this session. Otherwise, there is Aakash BYJU'S NEET channel as well. You can go there and watch the videos there. That's it. हो गया. ठीक है, स्वास्तिका आ गया आंसर, हो गया मेरा सॉल्व. तो probably you would have done a calculation mistake, so that is all right, no worries. And now let's go to level up question. हाँ स्वास्तिका, यही mistake नहीं होनी चाहिए. Now mistakes are not allowed. Okay, in these things, if you are making a conceptual mistake or if you are making a mistake in a high level question, in a good question, yes, that's fine. But if you are making a mistake in these questions, तब थोड़ा सा ध्यान से solve करना. Don't be in a rush to solve the questions. आराम से solve करो यार, अभी कोई exam नहीं हो रहा है. The focus should be on accuracy, and जैसे जैसे आपकी एक्यूरेसी बेटर होती जाएगी, आपका टाइम सॉल्व करने का ऑटोमेटिकली कम होता जाएगा. ओके, सो डोंट वरी टू मच अबाउट टाइम, वरी अबाउट एक्यूरेसी. एक बार में सही आंसर. यू जस्ट गेट वन शॉट टू सॉल्व अ क्वेश्चन इन योर एग्जाम. सही तो सही, गलत तो गलत. चलो, नो वरीज. Let's move forward and let's look at a level up question. This is a question from Irodov, a very nice question, but बाबा डरने की जरूरत नहीं है. Whenever I say a level up question, सबकी दिल की धड़कनें बढ़ने लगती हैं. Okay, it's a level up question, it's a good question, but we should not be afraid of it. ठीक है? Whenever we see a question which appears to be difficult to it, we should on the other hand get attracted to it. We should charge towards it. Okay, and try to solve it. ज़्यादा ज़्यादा क्या हो जाएगा? We won't be able to solve it, but in the end, we are going to learn something. चलो, ठीक है, let's get started. Now, a point moves in the plane xy according to the law. X is equal to 80 and y is equal to 80 into 1 minus alpha t, where a and alpha are positive constants and t is time. Find. What are the things that we need to find? We need to find the equation of the point's trajectory y as a function of x. Trajectory का equation निकालना है. Okay? And we have to plot this function as well. Next, the velocity v and the acceleration w of the point as functions of time. And the third thing we need to find out is the moment t naught at which the velocity vector forms an angle pi by 4 with the acceleration vector. Okay, that is the question. Motivational machine बोल रहा है, सर क्या अभी भी इनफ टाइम है JEE 2023 के लिए? मैंने 11 बिल्कुल नहीं पढ़ी. Yes, motivational machine, बहुत सारा टाइम है. Your exam is the first JEE main probably is going to happen in January. The second JEE main is going to happen probably in April. And JEE advanced might happen in May. Correct? So you have enough time, dude. You have enough time to strengthen your class 11th. Okay? And here we are doing 11th thoda fast. Okay? So that we do start from the basic, but here we do it a little fast so that we can quickly complete your syllabus and get you to that level. जो JEE main and advanced का level है, वहां तक आपको जल्दी पहुंचाने की कोशिश हम कर रहे हैं. All right, चलो. The equation looks difficult क्योंकि मैंने Irodov बोल दिया था, but in actual sense this question is not difficult at all. ये basic motion in 2D का ही फंडा है कि नहीं? Okay. So let's talk about the equation, the point's trajectory. Trajectory का मतलब क्या होता है? Trajectory का मतलब होता है the path it is going to follow. Y as a function of x. The path it is going to follow. So what we have here is x is equal to 80 and what we have here is y is equal to 80 minus a alpha t square. Is that correct? ठीक है? Now what does it mean? To find the equation of trajectory, we want to find out that in the 2D plane, in the xy plane, how is it moving? And its motion in the xy plane will be described by y as a function of x. बस ये x और y का एक graph है. Which means that what do we have to do? We have to eliminate t. Okay? So what will we do? We will eliminate t from here. So t we can write it as x divided by a and now we can substitute it in y. तो ये क्या हो जाएगा? A multiplied by the value of t is x by a minus a alpha and the value of t is x by a. So this is going to become x square by a square. Okay, so this is going to become a cancelled, ये एक a और ये एक a cancelled. So this becomes x minus alpha upon ax square. Okay, so this is going to be the equation of trajectory. Now can anyone tell me what is this equation of trajectory? What is this equation? Can you tell me what is this equation? ठीक है, how is the graph going to look like? Y is equal to x minus alpha by a x square. How is this graph going to look like? Can anyone give me a hint? चलो quickly give me a hint. Parabolic graph होगा. Very good Swastika. Give me more answers. Downwards. Downwards क्या? Parabolic होगा. But give me more information. Give me more information. You know how to draw a quadratic function. Obviously this is a quadratic function. Parabolic graph होगा, yes, but give me more information. Graph कैसा दिखेगा? Starting from origin, very good. Starting from origin. ठीक है? And x square का जो coefficient है, that is negative. मतलब the parabola is going to be concave downwards. So your graph is going to look like this. This is y, this is x. Correct? Clear? चलो, तो समझ में आ गया? So we understood what is the meaning of finding the trajectory of or equation of trajectory of a particle's motion. Correct? Chalo, very good. Now let's look at the second part. What is the second part? Part A तो हमने solve कर लिया. What is the second part? The velocity v and the acceleration w of the point as a function of time. Now how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Chalo, let's look at this. So we need the velocity of the particle. Velocity of the particle मतलब we need to tell the magnitude of velocity of the particle. ठीक है? How are we going to do it? Again, break the motion into x and y components. That's all. All we have to do is break this motion into x and y motions. Okay. In x motion, we have x is equal to at. How do we find the velocity in the x direction? Very simple. Differentiate it with respect to the time. Okay. So if you differentiate x with respect to time, you're going to get the velocity in the x direction. So this is going to be equal to a. What is y? Y is equal to at minus a alpha t square. If we want the velocity in the y direction, what do we have to do? We have to simply differentiate it with respect to time. So this is going to become a minus 2a alpha t. Is that correct? Okay. Now what is going to happen? Now what do we need to find out? We need to find out the magnitude of the velocity. Okay. We need to find out the magnitude of the velocity. So the magnitude of the velocity is going to be simply Vx square plus Vy square under root. Is that correct? That's it. So you know what is Vx, you know what is Vy. So you can simply substitute Vx and Vy and find out what is the speed, or you can say what is the magnitude of the velocity. Is that correct? Okay. The same thing we can do with the acceleration also. Exactly the same thing we can do with the acceleration. Now we need acceleration in the x direction. What do we need to do? We need to differentiate Vx with respect to time. If we differentiate Vx with respect to time, we are going to get Ax. So what is this? Vx is a constant. So the differential of a constant is going to be 0. So what is this? Ax is equal to 0. Is that correct? Okay. What about Ay? So here is Vy. If we differentiate it with respect to time, what are we going to get? We are going to get Ay. So A का differential कितना हो जाएगा? 0. Then T का differential कितना हो जाएगा? 1. So we are going to be left with minus 2A alpha. So the acceleration in the y direction is minus 2A alpha. So the net acceleration is going to be what? The net acceleration is simply going to be minus 2A alpha. Is that correct? Okay. W is not a function of time. Yes, Swastika, because W has come out to be constant. Is that correct? The W you can say is a constant function of time. Yes. चलो विशाल बोल रहा है एक एक क्वेश्चन में इतना टाइम कौन लगाता है सर, अभी तक क्वेश्चन भी सॉल्व नहीं हुआ आपसे. विशाल, दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम इरोडोव, राइट? सो क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करने में टाइम इसलिए लगता है बिकॉज आई हैव टू एक्सप्लेन एंड आई हैव टू make your concepts clear, and this is a large question, this is a big question, this is not an ordinary question, this is a question from Irodov, so obviously it will take time to explain. ठीक है? अगर you are feeling, अच्छा, you are saying कि नींद आने लगती है आपके सेशन में, so Vishal, you can go to some other channel or you can go to some other YouTube channel and class where there is a lot of entertainment. We are not here for entertainment, we are here for a purpose, and we are going to solve that purpose. We are here for students to crack JEE and JEE main and advance. ठीक है? चलो, let's get started again. ठीक है? Guys, please don't interrupt. If you don't like the session, please get out of the session. Go watch somewhere else where there is a lot of entertainment. Okay? Chalo, let's get back. So we have got the acceleration minus 2a alpha. What does it mean? That the acceleration is in the negative y direction. It is 2a alpha and the acceleration is in the negative y direction. Is that correct? Chalo. So A and B done. Now what is part C? The part C is the moment t naught at which the velocity forms an angle pi by 4 with the acceleration vector. Now think about this. We need to find out the time at which the velocity vector forms an angle pi by 4 with the acceleration vector. So now we know what is the trajectory. It is exactly like projectile motion, isn't it? Okay. There is no acceleration in the x direction. There is only acceleration in the y direction. Okay. Yani when velocity vector का slope 1. Yes, wait, Swastika. इसी हड़बड़ी में गड़बड़ी हो जाती है. Wait, आराम से. Now let's see. What is the direction of acceleration? The direction of acceleration is downwards. Correct? So the direction of acceleration would be something like this. And what is this? This is 2a alpha. Is that correct? Let me go back and check. 2a alpha. Okay, direction of acceleration is 2a alpha. Which means now the velocity is making pi by 4. Can the velocity make pi by 4 in the upward journey? Can the velocity make pi by 4 angle in the upward journey with the acceleration or with the downward direction? Okay. Are there going to be two such points? Think about it, Swastika. Are there going to be two such points? In the upward journey, the angle is always going to be obtuse. In the upward journey, the angle is always going to be obtuse. Check. Which means that the angle is going to be acute when the velocity becomes like this. Do you agree? When the velocity becomes like this. Is that correct? Okay? So what will be the direction of Vy? The direction of Vy is going to be this. Then the direction of Vx going to be this. Now what direction or what is the angle it is making with the x-axis? Check. This angle is in what direction? This angle is in clockwise direction. This angle is below the horizontal. Is that correct? This angle is below the horizontal. So the angle it is going to make is going to be pi by 4. But if we take the correct sign of the angle, this angle should be taken as minus pi by 4. Do you agree? Do you agree or not? In its upward journey, it is never going to make an acute angle with the downward direction. Only in its downward journey, it is going to make an angle of pi by 4 with the downward direction. Which means that Vy is going to face downwards and Vx is going to always face in the positive x direction. That is obvious. But what is this angle? Okay, what is this angle between Vx and the velocity vector? What is this angle between the velocity and the horizontal direction? This angle is not pi by 4, but this angle is minus pi by 4 if we take it correctly. Okay, which means we can write tan minus pi by 4 should be equal to Vy divided by Vx. Is that correct? Okay, so tan minus pi by 4 is going to be what? It is going to be minus 1. Vy का वैल्यू कितना है? We have already figured that out. Vy का वैल्यू है a minus 2a alpha t. A minus 2a alpha t divided by what is the value of Vx? The value of Vx is simply a. So we are going to substitute a. So this is going to become minus a is equal to a minus 2a alpha t. So this is going to give us t is equal to 1 upon alpha. Yes, that's absolutely right, Swastika. T will be equal to 1 by alpha. So this is the conceptual error that I don't want you to make. आ रही बात समझ में? ठीक है? Now when you said that tan pi by 4 should be equal to Vy by Vx, then we should take the magnitude of Vy and magnitude of Vx. Do you agree? When we are taking Vy and Vx directly, there is the direction incorporated already. Do you agree with that? If we are simply taking Vy and Vx, we have direction incorporated in that. I want to put some emphasis on this so that we don't make a mistake over here. Vx is A. It captures the direction as well. Vy is equal to A minus 2A alpha t. It captures the direction as well. For different times, Vy can be positive or negative. Do you agree? So it captures the direction as well. So when we are writing tan alpha is equal to Vy by Vx, we should be very careful about the sign over here. We should be very careful about the angle over here. Is it a positive angle? Is it a negative angle? What kind of angle it is making with the x-axis? Okay? So either what we can do is we can take tan minus pi by 4 is equal to Vy by Vx. That is the best way to do it. But if you don't want to do that, you can say that the tan of pi by 4 will be equal to the magnitude of Vy divided by the magnitude of Vx. That also works. Okay? But we should not make this mistake. ये concept clarity आपकी होनी चाहिए. Clear? चलो. So what we are done is, we are done with the basic concept of motion in 2D, and these concepts are going to be used in ground-to-ground projectile motion as well. In fact, the last question that you saw, what was this? The last question that we saw, what was this? This was actually a ground-to-ground projectile. We did not know anything about the ground-to-ground projectile. Is that correct? We knew nothing about ground-to-ground projectile. We did not know how is the particle projected, what is the range, what is the launching velocity. We did not know anything. Okay? But by just using the concept of motion in 2D, we could solve a question which was actually a projectile motion. Okay? Chalo. So the concept of 2D motion is going to remain same across whatever we are studying. So ground-to-ground projectile motion is just a special case of motion in 2D. Now I'm going to zip through projectile motion, okay, because you guys are already very well versed in projectile motion, the basics of projectile motion. But obviously I'm going to pay some emphasis where emphasis is required. Okay? Chalo. Now ground-to-ground projectile motion mein what happens? That you have a particle which is thrown or projected with the speed u at a certain angle theta. Notice this theta is taken with the horizontal. Whatever formula we use for projectile motion, theta is always used from the horizontal. We should be careful about that. Okay, so it will follow a beautiful parabolic trajectory. It will reach a maximum height. The horizontal distance covered is going to be called range, and the time for which it was in air will be called the time of flight. You know all of these things. So how do we go about it? Obviously, we break the motion into two parts. Okay. In the horizontal direction, what do we have? There is no acceleration. Do you agree? In the horizontal direction, there is no acceleration. In the vertical direction, the acceleration is going to be in what direction? It is going to be downwards. Hence, Ay is equal to minus g. What do we do with velocity? The x component of the velocity is u cos theta, and the y component of the velocity is u sin theta. Correct? All of us know this very well. So what we have done is, we have broken down all the parameters along the x-axis and y-axis. Okay. What is the consequence of that? There is no acceleration in the x direction, which means the x velocity remains constant. Point number one. Point number one. Note this down. If you don't know this, or if you're not clear with this, note these points so that it becomes refreshed in your memory. Okay? There is no acceleration in the horizontal direction, which means the acceleration is constant in the x direction. Okay? The horizontal velocity is always going to be constant. Okay. Is there acceleration in the vertical direction? Yes, there is a constant acceleration in the vertical direction. So the velocity is going to change. Now the question is, how do we calculate time of flight? We know the formula for time of flight. Time of flight is 2u sin theta by g, which is 2uy upon g. ठीक है. But the question is, how do we calculate the time of flight? I want to know from you, because derivation is important in projectile motion. It is also going to help you in projectile motion on an inclined plane. The derivation is important, and if you understand the derivation, you can solve questions quicker. Just knowing the formula is not enough. So can you tell me how is time of flight calculated? Sir, by using uy is equal to u sin theta. ठीक है, correct. uy is u sin theta. But how do we calculate the time of flight? The time of ascent plus time of descent. Free fall से कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. All the answers I am getting is close to what I am expecting, but not exactly. आपने सिमेट्री ऑफ मोशन बताई थी, करेक्ट, सही बात है, मैंने बताई थी सिमेट्री ऑफ मोशन. ठीक है. नाउ वी कैन फाइंड आउट time of flight in two ways. We can find out time of flight in two ways. What is the first thing? The first thing is the time of flight is going to be, if we write the equation for the x-axis. Okay, if we write if we write equation for the y-axis, we say that y is equal to uyt minus half gt square. Is that correct? For the y motion, we can write it as u sin theta t minus half gt square. ठीक है, for the y direction. And what happens at this point? Y is 0, and this point y is 0 as well. So what do? We substitute y is equal to 0. So we get t is equal to 0, and we get t is equal to 2u sin theta by g, which means that is the time interval between the particle being at the initial position and the time it reaches the final point. Correct? Clear है ये? ठीक है. So this is one way of finding what is the time of flight. But what is the other way of finding time of flight? Yes, this is what I was expecting. This is what I was expecting. Very good, Swastika. What is this u sin theta? U sin theta is the vertical velocity. Okay. So at the highest point, what is going to happen to u sin theta? At the highest point, u sin theta will become, or what can I say that? Uy or Vy, the velocity in the y direction is going to become 0. So what do we have to do? We have to take how much time does it take for this vertical velocity to become 0. So this is nothing but the time of ascent. And what is time of ascent? 2u by g. Is that correct? The time of ascent is 2u by g. But instead of u, I'm sorry, the time of ascent is u by g. But instead of u, what do we have to look at? We just have to look at uy, because what is becoming 0 at the highest point, or at half the time what is becoming 0? Uy is becoming 0. Okay, so t is going to be equal to what? The time of ascent is going to be uy upon g. So the time of flight is going to be twice of this. The time of flight is going to be twice of this because the motion is symmetric. तो ये बात समझ में आनी चाहिए that the time of flight, very important to note, the time of flight depends only on what? The time of flight depends only on the vertical velocity. Is that clear or not? ठीक है, फॉर्मूला सबको पता है 2u sin theta by g, but you should be very clear in your mind that the time of flight only depends upon what? The time of flight only depends upon the vertical velocity. Is that correct? Clear? चलो next. Maximum height reached. Sir, in real life projectile follows this symmetry. Depends how you are defining real life. In real life, if there is acceleration or air drag, then obviously it is not going to follow. But if the air drag is very minimal, then it is going to follow. ठीक है? So it depends कि what are you defining as real life? What are the parameters you are considering? ठीक है? चलो, maximum height reached. How do we calculate the maximum height reached? Quickly tell me. How do we calculate the maximum height reached? टू यू साइन स्क्वायर थीटा अपॉन 2g. नहीं, u स्क्वायर साइन स्क्वायर थीटा अपॉन 2g. The maximum height reached is this. But my question is, how do we find this out? What does it mean? What does it depend on? Okay. So basically, when the maximum height is reached, the vertical velocity becomes 0. Is that correct? Okay. So what do we in motion under gravity, what do we do? Maximum height reached is u square upon 2g. Is that correct? The maximum height reached, if we throw a stone vertically upwards, what happens? It is u square upon 2g. It is the height when the vertical velocity becomes 0. So in projectile motion, what are we going to do? Instead of u, what will we have? We'll have uy. H will be equal to uy square upon 2g. So at the point, the vertical velocity becomes 0. That is our point. Correct? So again, listen to this again. The maximum height reached depends on only the vertical velocity. Do you agree with that? The time of flight only depends on the vertical velocity. The maximum height reached only depends on the vertical velocity. These are the two important takeaways. Is that clear? So these are the 2 points on which I wanted to put emphasis. Okay. Next, what is range? Range is nothing but u cos theta, which is the horizontal velocity. It does not change. Okay, the horizontal velocity does not change. So r becomes u cos theta multiplied by the time of flight. And the time of flight we already know. So if we substitute that, we get u square sine 2 theta by g. But we can also write it as 2 ux uy by g. Sometimes this can also come in handy. 2 ux into uy divided by g. Okay. Do you get this? How did I get this? What is ux? Okay, how did I get this range? Range is equal to what? The velocity in the horizontal direction. What is the velocity in the horizontal direction? ux. No, I'm not talking about that also, Swastika. I'm not talking about the formula also. I'm just saying that what is the horizontal displacement? The velocity in the horizontal displacement multiplied by the time of flight. What is the time of flight? Time of flight is 2uy divided by g. That's it. That's it. Are you baat samajh mein? So how do you calculate the range? You take the motion in the x direction. You take the velocity in the x direction. In this case, the acceleration in the x direction was 0. That is why we did velocity into time. But in other cases, it may happen that there is acceleration. इस बार JEE Advanced में जो question आया था, go look it up. There is acceleration in the horizontal direction as well. So what is the question? What is the point that I want to emphasize? The point I want to emphasize is you just have to write the equation for x direction. अगर acceleration है तो अच्छी बात है, नहीं है तो भी कोई बात नहीं. Is that correct? ठीक है? So just remembering this formula, just remembering or mugging up this formula is not going to help. We need to understand how 2D motion is applied in projectile motion. ठीक है? Vertical velocity, time of flight. ठीक है? So time of ascent. What is time of ascent? When vertical velocity becomes 0. So the time of ascent or the time of flight is only dependent on the vertical velocity. What is maximum height reached? When the vertical velocity becomes 0. So the maximum height reached is also only dependent upon the vertical velocity. Is that correct? What is range? The displacement in the horizontal direction or the displacement in the x direction. Correct? Clear है? चलो. So all these things are clear. तो एक चीज और याद रखने की है. What is that? R for maximum, the range to be maximum, theta should be equal to 45 degree. Correct? For range to be maximum, theta should be equal to what? 45 degree. ये आपको पता है. Sin 2 theta क्या हो जाएगा? Sin 2 theta will become 1, which means 2 theta is going to become 90 degree. Theta is going to be 45 degree. This you know very well. The range has to be 45 degree. I'm sorry, the angle of projection has to be 45 degree for maximum range. Chalo. Done. Next, equation of trajectory. We have already learned how to calculate equation of trajectory. ठीक है? इक्वेशन ऑफ ट्रेजेक्ट्री कैसे निकालते हैं? एक्स डायरेक्शन में मोशन लिखेंगे एज अ फंक्शन ऑफ टाइम, वाई डायरेक्शन में मोशन लिखेंगे एज अ फंक्शन ऑफ टाइम, और एक्स को वाई में सब्सटीट्यूट कर देंगे. दिस इज हाउ वी calculate, or this is how we find the equation of trajectory. So if you find the equation of trajectory, it is given by y is equal to x theta, x tan theta minus gx square upon 2u square cos square theta. जो फॉर्मूला मुझे कभी याद नहीं रहता है. अगर मुझे नहीं याद रहता है तो प्रॉब्ली आपको भी नहीं याद रहेगा. आप इसको याद रख सकते हो, ठीक है, नॉट वेरी डिफिकल्ट. y is equal to x tan theta minus gx square upon 2u square cos square theta. You can remember this. ठीक है, डिराइव करने में बहुत टाइम लगेगा स्वास्तिका, डिराइव नहीं करना, इट विल टेक अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम. ठीक है, सो आई एम टेलिंग यू अ सिंपलर फॉर्मूला. तो इसमें से इफ यू जस्ट टेक एक्स टैन थीटा कॉमन, ठीक है, इफ यू टेक एक्स टैन थीटा कॉमन, ये जो आएगा दिस विल बिकम 1 माइनस एक्स अपॉन आर. नाउ दिस इज अ बेटर फॉर्मूला टू रिमेंबर. y is equal to x tan theta 1 minus x by r. This is easier. This is much easier. Is that correct? ठीक है? So y will be equal to x tan theta into 1 minus x by r. If you are able to remember this, good. If you're not able to remember this, this is easier. I always remember this. X tan theta into 1 minus x by r. Where r is the range. Yes, obviously. Where r is the range. Obviously. Correct? ठीक है? कोई problem? चलो. So we are done with the theory of projectile motion, and obviously I'm talking about ground to ground projectile motion. Things will change when we go on an inclined plane. Things will change there, but our focus right now is ground to ground projectile motion. So let's check your concept if that is clear or not, and let's look at the concept check post. Okay, it's a very interesting question, very basic question, but interesting question. It is just going to check your concept, if you have understood it or not, if you can apply these things or not. ठीक है? So there are 4 cannonballs, as you can see, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Their trajectories are given. Now what is given? 1 is thrown at an angle of 60 degree. 2 and 3 are thrown at an angle of 45 degree. And 4 is fired at an angle of 30 degree above the horizontal. ठीक है? The question is, which cannonball has the largest initial speed? So what we have to do is, we have to compare 1, 2, 3 and 4 for their initial speeds. ठीक है? Now I want suggestion from you guys. The question is in front of you. The answer, the diagram is in front of you. ठीक है? This is 2, 4. Okay? This is in front of you. Now I want to understand from you. ठीक है? How do we solve it? I want you to actually check your concept. ठीक है? Can you solve it or not? What are you going to think? Whatever you are thinking, you can tell me. How you are going to compare? What are the things that you are going to look at? गेमिंग टाइगर बोल रहा है, सर कॉन्सेप्ट समझता हूं पर क्वेश्चंस गलत हो जाते हैं. अरे टाइगर, गेमिंग में ही बनते रहोगे तो क्वेश्चंस तो गलत होते जाएंगे ना. टाइगर बनना है पढ़ाई में भी. ठीक है? सो यस, obviously we have to practice more and more. So we have to do more of conceptual questions to understand or to get better at solving questions. ठीक है? Aditya Kumar, please don't spam. I've got the answer. You have said 1. Okay, I'll check that. Please don't spam. Arpit बोल रहा है 1. Swastika बोल रही है 4. ठीक है? Give me the reason, Baba. Give me the reason. Why? आकांक्षा बोल रही है 4 आ रहा है. Why and how? Manab Mandal is saying 22. What does that mean? 22 तो ऑप्शन भी नहीं है. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4. Nikita is saying 1. Swastika is saying maximum range at 45 degree. ठीक है? Correct. Maximum range at 45 degree. That needs minimum velocity for same range. Okay. So you are comparing 2 and 4. Is that right, Swastika? You are comparing 2 and 4. So maximum range at 45 degree, ठीक है, understood. That needs minimum velocity for same range, right? ठीक है. So that is a very good thinking, Swastika. Very good. That's a very good thinking. 1 and 4 will have the same range for the same velocity. 1 and 4 will have the same range for the same velocity. Why is that? 1 and 4 will have the same range for the same velocity. Why is that? Aarti has joined us. Hello, Aarti. चलो, आंसर मुझे मिल नहीं रहा यार. Only Swastika is answering. What about you guys? What about the other people? बताओ, what do you think? What do you think? Dhruv has also joined. Hello, Dhruv. Too late, too late. The session is about to end. Okay, but as range for 4 is shown to be more, thus 4 has more velocity. ठीक है, चलो. Okay, I'm getting some good answers. Yes, Swastika, you are thinking in the right direction. चलो, let's see. Let's compare 1 and 2. Let's compare 1 and 2. And I'm asking you without using a pen. I'm comparing 1 and 2. Without using your pen, without even using the angles. Can you tell me, is 1 greater or 2 greater? That's the challenge. I'm throwing a challenge at you. Without even using the angles, without even using your pen, 1 is greater or 2 is greater? Why? Dhruv is saying 2, obviously. Why? Manab is saying 1 is greater. Why? I'm just comparing 1 and 2. एक एक करके compare करते ना. Let's compare 1 and 2. Okay? Greater the angle, shorter the range for speed. Not sure if that is correct. Sir, max height of 1 and 2 is equal. Yes, Nikita. And. Range में 2 is greater. Okay. 1 and 2 में, how do we figure out the speed? We are talking about the speed. Nikita, you are absolutely right. Maximum height of 1 and 2 is equal. So what? So what? Because 1 and 2 have same vertical component, but horizontal component of 2 is greater. Absolutely, Yash. Bang on. Very good answer. Very, very good answer. ठीक है? So without even using equations and without using angle, I want you to think. That's the point here. I want you to think. Without even these information, you can derive something. Now I'm just comparing 1 and 2. Think about it. 1 and 2 have the same maximum height. And the maximum height is dependent upon what? The maximum height is only dependent upon the vertical velocity. So the x component of 1, sorry, the y component of 1, the y component of 1 will be the same as the y component of 2. Do you agree or not? The y component of 1 is going to be equal to the y component of 2. What does it mean? Why do I say that? Because the maximum height reached is the same, and maximum height reached only depends on the vertical velocity. What else also depends only on the vertical velocity? The time of flight. The time of flight of 1 is also equal to the time of flight of 2. ठीक है? But x किसका ज़्यादा है? x किसका ज़्यादा है? x किसका ज़्यादा है? ठीक है? x 2 का ज़्यादा है. Which means, sorry, what are we comparing? We are comparing 1 and 2. Correct. So, x किसका ज़्यादा है? x 2 का ज़्यादा है. यानी we can say that the velocity in the x direction for 2 will be equal to or is going to be greater than the velocity in the x direction for 1. Can we say that? ठीक है, can we say that? Now for 1 and 2 the time of flight is what? The time of flight is the same. Is that correct? For 1 and 2 the time of flight is the same because the vertical component of the velocity is the same. Okay. Now in this case what is happening? The x component of velocity for 2 is going to be greater than the x component of velocity for 1. Is that correct? ठीक है, am I correct? Am I correct? ठीक है. So in this case what is going to happen? the velocity of 2 is going to be greater than 1. Do you agree? Do you agree or not? The velocity of 2 is going to be greater than velocity of 1 or not? Okay? Their vertical components of the velocity are the same. Their vertical components of the velocity are the same. But the horizontal component of velocity for 2 is greater than the horizontal component of velocity for 1. Is that right or not? Okay? That is absolutely right. So what does it mean? It means that V2, what is V2? The speed of 2 is going to be greater than the speed of 1. Is that correct? The speed of 2 is going to be greater than speed of 1. Clear? Okay? So without even using any angle or equation, we are able to figure this out. Chalo. What else can we figure out? Okay? Let's talk about 3 and 2. Okay? Or let's talk about 3 and 1. Or whatever. ठीक है, किसी के बारे में भी बात कर सकते हैं. So let's talk about 2 and 3. Can we compare 2 and 3? Tell me, can we compare 2 and 3? How do we compare 2 and 3? Tell me, how do we compare 2 and 3? ठीक है. Now 3 is, now what is common between 2 and 3? Tell me. What is common between 2 and 3? They have the same angles. Yes, very good. Very good. But which one has a greater height reached? They have the same angles, but which one has a greater height reached? Okay? So between 2 and 3, what is common is the angle of projection. But what has reached the maximum height, or what has reached a greater height? 2 has reached a greater height. Okay? And the height and the maximum height reached depends on what? It depends on only the vertical velocity. So can I say u sine theta, or I can say v2 sine theta will be greater than v1 sine theta? Can I say that or not? Tell me. Is that correct? Nikita, रेंज पर जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. 2 और 3, if we are comparing, what is common between 2 and 3? The thing common between 2 and 3 is that the theta is same. Okay, their theta is same. So which has a higher vertical displacement, or can I say which one has a greater maximum height? 2 has a greater maximum height. And if 2 has a greater maximum height only depends on the vertical velocity. So what will happen? The vertical velocity of 2, which is v2 sine theta, is going to be greater than v1 sine theta. Correct? Sorry, I'm v3 sine theta. I'm very sorry. The maximum velocity, the vertical velocity for 2, which is v2 sine theta, should be greater than the vertical velocity of 3, which is v3 sine theta. Now sine theta and sine theta is same, so vt will be greater than v3 as well. तो अभी तक में विनर कौन आया है? v2 is greater than v1 also, and v2 is greater than v3 also. So now what do we need to compare? We need to compare 2 and 4. Correct? अब तो वही बचा. We have to compare 2 and 4 to figure out which one is greater. Do you agree? Do you agree? We have figured out v2 is greater than v1. We have also figured out v2 is greater than v3. So all we have to do is we have to figure out what is the relationship between 2 and 4. And what is common between them? The thing which is common between them is that they have the same range. Correct? They have the same range. Absolutely, they have the same range. So we can say that v2 square sine 2 theta. What is the angle of projection for 2? The angle of projection for 2 is 45 degree. So sine 2 theta is going to be sine 90 degree divided by g. This is equal to what? This is equal to v4 square sine. What is the angle of projection? The angle of projection is 30 degree. So sine 60 degree divided by g. Is that correct? Okay. So this is going to be equal to v2 square is equal to v4 square. And what is sine 60 degree? Sine 60 degree is root 3 divided by 2. So v4 will be equal to, or v4 square will be equal to 2 upon root 3 v2 square. And what is 2 upon root 3? Is it a quantity greater than 1? Yes, it is a quantity which is greater than 1. So v4 will be greater than v2. So V2 is greater than both 1 and 3 and V4 is greater than 2, which means what is our answer going to be? Our answer is going to be V4. V4 is going to be will be having the highest velocity. Okay. So Astika is saying 4 has lower angle, which means for the same velocity its range should be lower than 2. But as both have the same ranges, it means कि 4 has larger velocity and thus 4 is the answer. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. ठीक है, clear? Very good, very good. So my objective now, if you would have used the angles, if you would have used the formula, remember पहले दो पार्ट में we did not use the formula at all. आ रही बात समझ में? पहले दो पार्ट में we did not use the formula at all. Only by concept. What does the time of flight depend upon? What does the maximum height reach depend upon? What does the range depend upon? The relationship between those things. Using that itself, most part of the question we were able to solve. ठीक है? तो अगर हमको angle नहीं भी दिया रहता, तब भी we could have solved this. Is that correct? Clear? Okay. Now quickly I'm going to solve one more question and then I'm going to give you a homework. शाम डाउट कॉर्नर भी है. यस, शाम को डाउट कॉर्नर है. एट व्हाट टाइम? एट 5 o'clock डाउट कॉर्नर है एंड वी आर गोइंग टू डू सम वेरी गुड क्वेश्चंस ऑन प्रोजेक्टाइल मोशन. ठीक है, सम वेरी वेरी गुड क्वेश्चंस ऑन प्रोजेक्टाइल मोशन. चलो एक आसान सा क्वेश्चन कर देते हैं, उसके बाद फिर आगे बढ़ जाएंगे. नाउ दिस इज द इक्वेशन फॉर ट्रेजेक्ट्री. आई वांट टू फाइंड द हॉरिजॉन्टल रेंज. कैन आई डू दैट? हाउ डू आई डू दैट? y is equal to 16x. ठीक है, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 16x as common and this is going to become 1 minus 5 upon 64x. Why have I done that? I have done this so that I can compare it with x tan theta into 1 minus x upon r. Is that correct? ठीक है, so from here what do we get? We get the range as 64 by 5 meter directly. If it was asked what was the angle, then angle we could have directly got how much? We could have got tan theta is equal to 16. ठीक है, range is equal to 64. 64 by 5 होना चाहिए ना? It should be 64 by 5, isn't it? So I'm taking 16x as common. So this becomes 1 minus 5x upon 64. तो ये नीचे भी तो जाएगा, ये 64 by 5 भी तो हो जाएगा. So this is x divided by 64 by 5. Yes. So range कितना आएगा? 64 by 5 मीटर और tan theta कितना आ जाएगा? Tan theta आ जाएगा 16. Is that correct? Compare it with this. Tan theta is going to be equal to 16. अब यहीं पे let's say if you ask the question what was the initial speed, can you figure that out? From this equation can you figure out what is the initial speed? बताओ. Can we figure out the initial speed as well? We know what is tan theta, we know what is the range. Can we figure out the initial speed also? Of course. What is the range? U square sine 2 theta by g. And this is equal to 64 by 5. Now sine 2 theta, you can write sine 2 theta as, 2 sine theta cos theta. Tan theta पता है, तो sin theta भी निकल जाएगा, cos theta भी निकल जाएगा, and then you can find out what is u square. Is that correct? या फिर directly you can use जो equation of trajectory होता है, okay? Directly you can use this equation which is x tan theta minus gx square upon 2 u square cos square theta. You can use this also. Abhas, if you were not able to see the understand the question, probably you'll join late. Okay? So after this session has ended, you can go and see the entire thing again. Okay? Then hopefully you will understand it. Okay? Clear है? तो बस ऐसा ही करना है. If the equation of trajectory is given, you can find everything. You can find everything. You can find the angle of projection. You can find the launch velocity. You can find what is the range. And you can find the time of flight. You can find maximum height reached. Everything you can find. Is that correct? ठीक है, तो चलो. Now I am going to leave you with the homework. इसका screenshot ले लो. Take a screenshot of this question or note this question down. Okay? And today in the doubt corner, ठीक है, I'm going to come again today at 5 o'clock, and in the doubt corner we are going to discuss this question plus many more questions which are of very good level. Okay, we are going to solve some very good questions. Correct? ठीक है, तो इसको नोट कर लो या स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो, जैसे भी करना है कर लो. Now what I want from you guys is, number one, you should be able to solve this question. Number two, you should give me a smart solution also. ठीक है, Swastika is saying bird को क्यों मार रहे हो? Trust me Swastika, no animals were damaged in the making of this question. It's just a question. ठीक है, इस क्या बोलते हैं उसको, इस फिल्म के या इस कहानी के सारे पात्र जो हैं वो काल्पनिक हैं. ठीक है, so no actual birds were actually harmed. ठीक है, all right. ठीक है, तो मेरे को आंसर तो चाहिए, बट आई वॉन्ट अ स्मार्ट आंसर इज वेल. ठीक है, आई वॉन्ट द शॉर्टर मेथड इज वेल. सो यू गाइज ऑब्वियसली हैव टू वर्क ऑन द मेथड, ट्राई टू सॉल्व इट फर्स्ट, बट आई वॉन्ट द शॉर्टर मेथड ऑल्सो, एंड आई एम गिविंग यू अ हिंट ऑल्सो. यूज सिमेट्री इन मोशन. इक्वेशन अंडर ग्रेविटी इज सिमेट्रिक. Okay, equation under gravity is symmetric, so I'm giving you the hint also. If you use symmetry in motion, this question can be solved very easily. So I want both the solutions today at 5 o'clock. Okay, we are going to discuss it, plus we are going to discuss more questions as well. So do tune in at 5 o'clock again. So now I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to meet you today again at 5 o'clock. All right, so see you in the next session today. Till then, solve this question, keep practicing, keep getting better, and remember, you guys are rankers. Thanks for watching.